Good morning, everyone. We're super excited to chat with you today. This presentation is being recorded, so if you do not want your face to be on screen during the recording, you can turn off your cameras. We'll also ask you to stay muted for right now during the presentation, and we will do questions at the end. So as we are going through the presentation, if you think of some questions or you'd like some clarification, we just ask that you drop that into the chat function so that we can answer those questions at the end and provide some more explanations and context to your questions. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Heather Wolford. I'm the Senior Assistant Director of Admissions with Oregon State, and I'm going to turn it over to Riley to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I am Riley Trout. I am an admissions representative here at the University of Wyoming, and I am on campus. So I am located in Laramie, Wyoming. Another familiar face that you guys might hear the name of or see is Adrienne Loveland. She is our regional down in Colorado, so either myself or her would be great contacts.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Gabriel Fisher with Northern Arizona University, and I am a student recruitment coordinator based here in Colorado. So working with Colorado students and also some of the surrounding states from Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming. Welcome, welcome.
Great. So we're going to go through a lot of information about the Western Undergraduate Exchange this morning. And although this program is amazing and has a lot of great benefits for students, it can be very confusing. So we're hoping that we will be able to kind of provide some more explanation and make sure that you all are feeling more confident when understanding what WUE is and what it isn't and how it works at different institutions. So one of the things we just wanted to talk about first is why go out of state? You know, a lot of students aren't sure if they should stay in state or go out of state when it goes to college. And we really recommend that you try to explore all of your options. You don't want to limit yourself, you know, see what's out there, because sometimes going out of state might be the best option for you. You may have less impacted majors than what you're seeing in your home state. So that means that you have a little bit easier access to the classes that you want to take. You're able to get through your degree program in 4 years, but you also might find some specialized programs at those institutions, something that you don't offer here in your state. So, you know, maybe you really want to be working out on the ocean, right? That's a little harder from a landlocked state. So you might need to go out of state to do something like that. Affordability, a lot of people think of out of state as being just unattainable when it comes to their financial aspects. So, you know, really with some scholarships, you could find that an out-of-state college might provide you more aid than your in-state institution, and then they could be really comparable. It might be a great option for you financially. In addition to that, we want to think about those benefits for outside of the classroom, outside of college, after you get your degree, you know, doing internships with different companies. If there's a specific field you really want to work in, and one state has maybe better representation for that, you really want to work in the tech field, right? Maybe you're going to be going somewhere in California that has a lot of tech companies nearby. Being able to access those internships with those companies can be really beneficial while you're in college. And just, you know, kind of combining those last 2 points is gaining some independence and being aware of other parts of the country. You can learn a lot about yourself, moving, exploring a new area, and really getting out there to see what else exists past what you've been living around for so long. So we really hope that you consider going out of state and really think about the benefits that it might offer you that your in-state options might not. So we wanted to cover a few of the WUE buzzwords in this presentation because there is a lot of confusion around what WUE is. And we use a lot of terms in college admissions that, of course, us as representatives who do this day in and day out, of course, we know what it means. And sometimes we forget that this might be new to you. So we want to go through a few of those today so that you can feel more confident in understanding some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So on the left-hand column there, you're going to see a few terms that we're going to go through here. Reciprocity. Reciprocity is something that exists when you change and go to another school out of state, but you're going to get in-state tuition, right? So when you go out of state, you'll be paying out-of-state tuition, except for in some locations, they might give you reciprocity where you would pay in-state tuition at that institution instead. Residency is similar, but you actually have to go through an entire process with that state in order to become an in-state student, right? You're not getting a scholarship to be in-state. You are actually having to change your state of residency where you're deeming that you live for a resident. And that can change state by state. And sometimes those are really thorough processes. So definitely something that you need to look into, check out, because it is quite difficult in some states. When we talk about scholarship retention, we're talking about being able to keep your award for more than 1 year, right? So a lot of scholarships will have terms and conditions that you have to maintain as a current student to keep that scholarship, retain it throughout your time at that institution. You might also hear some universities say test optional or test blind. That is definitely a big thing right now because of COVID. A lot of schools and universities are changing their requirements around the ACT or SAT. So test optional being that it's up to you really to choose, right? Whether or not you want to send in your test score. And test blind or test free would be one where that school is not going to look at it at all, right? That's not something that they are going to consider, even if you wanted to send that in. Renewable scholarships, similar to that kind of scholarship retention line, renewable scholarships are those that last past 1 year. So some institutions might only offer scholarships that you have to apply for each year, do an annual basis. And some will do renewable, where as long as you're maintaining those retention requirements, you're going to be able to renew that. The last one we want to go over is super score, because if you are sitting down to take the ACT or the SAT, you want to talk with the school to see if they super score your test, which means they would take the highest of each category from different tests to create one massive super score, right? The highest possible combination between all of those tests that you took, from ACT, putting them all together, SAT, putting them all together, right? Kind of thinking about it as cherry picking. We're not going to go into financial aid a lot, so FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, but we did want to just do a gentle reminder that if you're a senior, FAFSA opened on Friday last week. So this is the time to be getting those in. And that's really how you're accessing those need-based awards such as grants, loans, and work study. Okay, so hopefully that kind of helps prepare you for these next couple of slides as we start talking a little bit more about WUE. We also want you to be thinking here beyond just the financial aspect of this presentation. We really want you to be thinking about those other elements that are very important in the college search, right? You're going to be picking a school based on a lot of things, and you need to give some thought to it now. Well, what's going to be most important? So after you come to this WUE session today, all the college reps are having individual sessions where you can drop in and talk to them about these things. So what's important to you, right? Finding a school that has the academic program you're interested in. Maybe the location and size is something important, right? You're going to be living there for 4 years. So is that someplace that you are going to feel comfortable living in? What's the student faculty ratio? Do they have the types of clubs that you want to do? Do they have Greek life, study abroad, right? All of that is really important along with that overall cost. So we hope that today, as you go to the next sessions, that you have a chance to talk with the reps about these areas that are important to you, so you can find which one's really going to be the best fit, both socially and financially. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to our next presenter to talk a little bit more specifically about WUE.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So diving into some of the details of WUE, again, the Western Undergraduate Exchange is what it stands for. And I just want to walk through a little bit about what it is and what it is not. So going through some of what it is a program brought to us by the Western Interstate Commission of Higher Education, or we often refer to it as WICHE. As you're probably discovering, we in higher ed love our acronyms. So WICHE is that Western Interstate Commission of Higher Education. WUE is also up to 150% of state resident tuition. So when you're looking at some different numbers and you're looking at different colleges and universities, you'll often see the in-state, sometimes this WUE, which is up to that 150% of the state resident tuition, and then comparing it to out of state. So you'll often see 3 different tuition numbers there. WUE is also part of public post-secondary institutions. So again, as you are looking at different schools, knowing that this program is part of those public educational institutions for after you're going or for after you graduate from high school. And it is also something that is applicable for 2- and 4-year degrees. So again, as you're exploring options and trying to decide your path, definitely want to check out to see how that works for either your 2-year or your 4-year degree program that you are considering. Some of the things that WUE is not, it is not in-state tuition. So again, as we're throwing out these different terms, please understand that it is different than that in-state tuition rate that schools will be talking about. WUE is also not necessarily guaranteed, so you'll want to make sure that you are asking questions of the schools that you're interested in attending, as we all have different processes surrounding access to WUE and how that is applied for you. Again, reciprocity, WUE is not a reciprocal relationship with that tuition. So just keeping that in mind as well. WUE is also not necessarily automatic. Again, talking to the schools that you're interested in to understand their process and if there are things that need to be done or what needs to be done to make sure you're receiving the WUE tuition rate. WUE is also not always available to every major offered at a specific institution. So definitely depending on what you are planning to study, your degree plan, checking to see if WUE is or is not available for that degree plan. Again, WUE is not residency. So just making sure that you understand kind of the differences there between residency and the Western Undergraduate Exchange Tuition program. And WUE is also not eligible at every school within WUE states. So for example, private schools in WUE states might not be using or probably are not using WUE as a tuition program. So just make sure you are having an understanding of that as well. So which states are part of WUE? There are many. Again, it's the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. So we're focusing on the Western part of the United States here. You can see all the different states listed out for you as well as pictured in the graphic on the screen there as well. So again, depending, obviously, Colorado is the participating state and one of the further east of the Western states for part of this program. So just want you to have a visual and a list of the different states that do participate in WUE. All right, so just kind of getting into that calculation, some ways as far as how the WUE tuition rate comes to be. You are basically taking the in-state tuition rate of the college or university that you're looking at and multiplying it by 1.5. And that's going to give you the WUE rate of tuition for that school. Again, it can be up to 150%, but this formula is going to give you a great idea of what that WUE tuition rate is going to look like. So just for some numbers, for example, if you're looking at a specific in-state tuition of $12,000 per year, you can go ahead and multiply that times 1.5 and get a WUE tuition rate of $18,000. We just wanted to use some nice round numbers for you to get an idea of how that formula looks with some facts and with some figures there for you. All right, so applying for WUE, there is not a general WUE application. So it's something that you're going to, again, go through your college or university, the institution that you're interested in, and ask them what their process is to either apply for their WUE program or what steps need to be taken. Many of WICHE's partner institutions will use WUE as a merit scholarship. So a lot of schools might talk about it that way. Different schools kind of use it in different ways, but a lot of times they'll offer that program as a merit scholarship for you. When you are applying, some things that you'll want to look for are early deadlines or programs that are on sort of a first come, first serve type of program. So asking those questions early, making sure you know what those deadlines are so that you can access that program at that particular school. Also asking them if there is a separate application for WUE to fill out for their school or their university, or if it depends on the program of study. Also asking about if there's a minimum GPA type of requirement, or if your test scores are going to be a factor when accessing the WUE tuition rate. And again, WUE could have some restrictions depending on your dedicated major or decided major. So ask those questions as well. So specifically for Northern Arizona University, our WUE tuition rate is $15,975. And again, every school is going to do this a little bit differently. So for NAU, you can see on the screen, there are not any specific GPA requirements. Test scores are not a factor. There is not an additional application. The program is available for all majors, and it is something that is stackable with other scholarships for the institution. We do offer some merit-based scholarships for WUE students. As you can see on the screen, we have our WUE Blue Scholarship Award and our WUE Gold, and you can see the GPA points for the awards there of 5,000 for the blue and 6,000 for the gold. And then we've got a little website there if you want to explore more of that.
Right. Thanks so much. We're going to talk a little bit about how it works for Oregon State and some of our merit-based scholarships. So OSU is a holistic review when it comes to the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So when students apply for admission, we're going to see you're from an eligible WUE state, and this would be the very first scholarship that we would review you for. So you don't have to do anything different to be considered for the scholarship, but it is very competitive. So we do not award WUE to all students from Western states. So when you're thinking about that application, you really want to make sure you're putting as much information in there as possible, but it's nice because you don't have to apply separately and there's no major restrictions. It is just competitive based off that holistic review. Students who are not awarded WUE are still considered for other scholarships during the admissions process, such as the Provost Scholarship. Additionally, when students are admitted to Oregon State, they've already applied, been accepted, you do have the opportunity to apply for Scholar Dollars, which is our scholarship portal. And that would allow you to apply for all those other scholarships at OSU that are not part of admissions. So that would include things through, the College of Engineering or the College of Science, and some things based on extracurriculars. So that's kind of the second round of scholarships. So for my takeaways with Oregon State is that one, our priority deadline for scholarships is February 1st, listed there at the bottom. WUE is part of a review based off of your admissions application, and it is competitive. And once you have already been accepted to Oregon State, you get an opportunity to apply for more scholarships from Oregon State. So I would be happy to answer specific questions about OSU as well. You can drop those in the chat, but I'm going to pass it on to Riley.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, guys, so everybody welcome. I see some new names and faces, not really faces, names in here. So welcome. A little bit about the University of Wyoming and our WUE eligibility specifically. So at the University of Wyoming, when a student applies to regular admissions to the university, that is their application for the Western Undergraduate Exchange, very similar to OSU. And with that, we will then make sure you are from a WUE participating state 1. Second, we will then be looking for your high school unweighted GPA numbers and then also your test score. So even though we are test optional for this semester, fall 2022, WUE is still requiring a test score. So you will need to have an unweighted GPA requirement and also be meeting an ACT or SAT requirement in order to be eligible and be considered for this scholarship. If you do not qualify dependent on those requirements, your GPA and your test score, there is also another out-of-state scholarship that we call the Brown and Gold's Commitment. This scholarship, again, very similar to WUE, how you qualify for it. However, because we are test optional, you can always still qualify just dependent on your test score. So going back to WUE, that is the only scholarship that is requiring a test score. It is a very competitive program, as where the Brown and Gold commitment has a few other options for you. But those are our scholarships. There is a grid out on our website. So if you go to uwyo.edu, shown at the bottom of that screen right there, you can see the Brown and Gold commitment grid, which is a little bit easier to look because it is on a sliding grid system to see what divisions of scholarships you could be receiving. If you guys have more scholarship specific questions, you can type them in the chat specifically to myself, or just wait until the end to ask me those specific questions about the University of Wyoming. But that is how WUE works here at UW. All right, moving forward into scholarships, financial aid, on top of how you can receive the Western Undergraduate Exchange at specifically the three institutions that we just talked about, NAU, OSU, and UW. So moving forward into academic scholarships, Heather touched on this a little bit, specifically for OSU. At specific institutions that you are interested in, they could also be awarding academic scholarships. Those academic scholarships, again, are different at every institution you are interested in. There might be additional deadlines on top of just those regular admission scholarships. So make sure when you're communicating with all the schools that you are interested in, reach out, ask those questions. Are there different academic questions? Or are there also academic scholarships? But then also make sure you're asking if there are deadlines for those specific scholarships for the intended major you are interested in. Moving into private scholarships, this is another great opportunity for you. Again, going back to it's different at every institution. Some of these are stackable on top of academic scholarships. Some of them may not be. So make sure you are asking all of those questions at your interested schools. But these private scholarships could range from any employment scholarships, maybe from your mom or your dad's employment, or even your current employment as a high school student if you do have a job. Any organization that you are part of, Boys and Girls Club, if you're a part of any other activity outside of school, reach out, ask those different places if they have external scholarships you could be applying for. And then others maybe come down to your church organizations. So really go out on a limb and ask anything that you are a part of in high school if they have external scholarships you can apply for. Another great resource, kind of moving down a few bullets, going to state and local scholarships. Reach out to your high school counselor. They usually have a giant list of scholarships you can kind of just view through in your counselor's office and see if that's something you're interested in applying for. And then at a state or just a city level, police departments, fire departments, maybe just your city of your town, they also have tons of scholarships as well. So really, if you are struggling financially, wanting to look for other scholarships, that shouldn't be a question. Your community, your high school has tons of different opportunities for external scholarships. Moving down one more bullet into scholarship search engines. You can certainly go out onto the web and look under any of these search engines. However, the biggest thing I'm going to encourage you guys to do is make sure that these are free scholarships you're applying for. If there's anything that you see that is a cost to apply for 2 scholarships, or if it's a deal to apply for 5 scholarships for the price of 1, don't do it. Scholarships should be free. Every scholarship you're applying for at this stage in high school for college, they should be free, including your FAFSA. Free is in the title. It is your free application for student aid, so make sure it is not being charged. You're not being charged for filling out any scholarships. I already touched on state and local scholarships, so I'm going to skip that one and move down to touch a little bit more on the financial aid. I know Heather did a little bit. That opened up on Friday, so 2 days ago. Most schools will have some deadlines. Not every school is the FAFSA required. Not every school is there a deadline. So definitely going back to asking those questions. If any institution you're interested in ask to see if the FAFSA is required, ask to see if there's a deadline, ask those questions. At some institutions, the FAFSA is required in order to receive those academic scholarships. However, filling out the FAFSA isn't a bad thing. And also not filling it out isn't a bad thing either. It's different for every family. However, most schools will encourage it because it just gives you another option for federal aid you could be qualifying for. On top of all of that being said, you don't have to accept any of those scholarships from FAFSA. So if you fill out your FAFSA and you just want to get an idea to see what you could receive, you can do that, and then you do have to accept it. So there's no penalty for you to not accept it, if that makes sense. So that's a little bit about FAFSA. If you guys have questions, each of the institutions should have a federal aid or FAFSA office, a financial aid office. So reach out to those institutions' financial aids office and ask specifically about that institution. Okay, moving into kind of a quiz or the common questions that we get a lot about WUE at all of our different institutions. The first one, is WUE stackable? Well, the answer is it depends. So it depends. Why that is because at every institution, including our threes, my institution is very different from Heather's and Gabriel's. And across the other WUE participating states, and you saw there are a wide variety of those. It depends. It is all going to come down to you asking those questions, you making sure that you have answered those questions and asked, if I receive this scholarship, is it going to stack on top of WUE? So just make sure you're asking those questions and getting the answer for that specific institution. Moving forward into, do I have to apply for the Western Undergraduate Exchange? Yes and no. Again, it depends. It depends on every institution that you're interested in. As you've seen at NAU, it was very straightforward. There weren't really any requirements. And then for OSU and UW, it depended on your admissions application. So there you go, 3 schools, and we are all 3 different. So again, reach out to the institution when you're filling out the regular application for admissions. Do a little bit of research or call the admissions office and ask that question. How do I apply for WUE, or what are my requirements? Can I use WUE for a graduate program? Again, it depends. It is a very common answer with the Western Undergraduate Exchange program. Very different at different institutions that you're interested in. Some schools will offer similar programs for undergraduate and graduate programs, and some just don't accept WUE for graduate programs. So it depends on the institution. It also depends on maybe what graduate program you are interested in. As some institutions, as Gabriel was saying earlier in the presentation, only some institutions have certain majors it could be required for. Okay, this is my last slide, I believe, but what are the requirements for WUE? My favorite answer again, it depends. So with the Western Undergraduate Exchange, the requirements for WUE are very different between each of the institutions. You just need to go out. Usually each institution will have these requirements on their website, but again, going back to a few slides, I said, when you're filling out applications for admissions for the interested institutions you're interested in, just give us a call, go out onto our website, do a little bit of research beforehand, and just make sure that you know the requirements. A helpful tip, once you're applying to these schools, if you're applying to 2 schools or if you're applying to 10 schools, get a notebook, write all of the institutions out, and write the WUE requirements for each of the different institutions. That way you know when you're applying, when you've got accepted, you have already applied for WUE, or, oh wait, this institution still requires me to apply for WUE. So that's a helpful tip for you guys when you're applying to different schools within the WUE program.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks, Riley. Yeah. So we're almost to the end here, and we're going to be doing some questions, but we do want to cover 2 more quick things about WUE. So is WUE renewable? WUE is renewable for up to 4 years, right? So as you're getting that bachelor degree, but it's not available for the summer courses. So it's just something that you want to be thinking about in terms of, you know, what your schedule is going to look like, how you're going to take your classes. But WUE is what we would call a renewable scholarship, where you can keep it more than 1 year, up to 4 years total. Does WUE change my residency? This is probably one of the biggest questions that I get is, okay, I'm a WUE student. Am I then becoming a resident of Oregon? No. So WUE does not change your residency. You'll remember that Gabriel went over, some things that it is and is not, right? WUE is not reciprocity, it's not residency. So you're not going to become a resident of the state that you are going to, unless you specifically go through their residency process. So WUE does not change that by just itself. All right.
So again, for more information about WUE, the program, kind of all the details of it, definitely check out the website here, witchy.edu/WUE. There's some great information on there. I know there's been sort of a lot of it depends with this presentation. But definitely visiting their website just to learn more about the program. It really is pretty wonderful. I glanced at it just this morning, and last year there were $411.7 million of tuition savings through the WUE program. And on average, per student savings, it was $9,692. Savings per student. So again, I know there's lots of steps. Everybody works with WUE a little bit differently, but the savings is there. I promise once you get through the steps and you're able to access it at the schools that you're interested in. So we've got each of our contact information up here. We just want to thank each of you for your time today. We are not finished though. If you do have questions, feel free to unmute or put those in the chat. And we definitely open it up to any questions that we can answer for you.
I just wanted to add in for all of you students here in this meeting. I told the two at the very beginning, Adrian Loveland is the main regional in Colorado. However, there are a wide variety of us. There are 4 admissions representatives within the state. So even though she's the Colorado regional, you can ask her any question, she'd be willing to help. I am from about Aspen West over to the Wyoming-Utah state line. So if there are any of you in this who are Aspen West, not including Aspen, that is Adrian, feel free to shoot me an email. I've just put my information in the chat. So reach out to Adrian or myself, whatever works best for you.
Great. So I had a question that had come through the chat that was a really great one, because a lot of students might be considering going online for their education and attending an online program. Some of our institutions might have an online environment that you could get your degree from. And that's a good one to ask, because like with Oregon State, WUE is not eligible for students who are an e-campus student. So if they're getting their degree fully online, they are not eligible for WUE. It's only for students who are attending the Corvallis or our OSU Cascades campus. So that is definitely a great question to be asking universities if you are considering being online for your entire degree, to see if there's any changes to the WUE program. So Riley or Gabriel, anything else you want to add specific for your institutions on that?
The University of Wyoming, again, follows OSU pretty straight. It is only good for University of Wyoming Laramie campus students. And if you are up at Casper, at our Casper branch, UW Casper is also good there, but not at a distance education program.
Yes, pretty much the same for NAU. For Flagstaff students, you'll have that WUE savings, but I'm like 97% sure that for our online programs, that it would not be available for that type of learning method.
And if you all have specific questions that you don't want us to answer over chat, you can just ask if we will respond back to you personally. So you can do that as well if you don't want everybody to know.
So I had another one that came in and asked, how do you know which schools participate in WUE? So the site that Gabriel just went over, I'll go back a slide. This website has a lot of great information, and it'll also talk more about the schools that have opted into it, because that is one of the most confusing parts of WUE, is that not every university in a Western state is going to participate. So when you are talking with representatives today, when they come to your high school, at any other virtual event that you might be attending, my recommendation is the first question you should ask about scholarships is, do you participate in WUE? Because they will be able to tell you whether or not they do. And then your second question is really, how do I get considered for WUE? You know, that question of, do I need to apply? Is there a specific GPA, right? And do that, because that is really one of the more tricky parts of the Western Undergraduate Exchange, is just kind of getting all that information of who is participating and how. So definitely check out the website for some general information, but really contact the representatives of schools you're interested in, and they will be able to give you the details for their specific institution. Okay. I got another one about residency. So how do you gain residency at a school? So I'm happy to, you know, write that back to you specifically for Oregon State. But really, this is a question that you do want to talk to each institution about, because that really is kind of more of a statewide mandate for a lot of states, is that there's something, it's not institution specific, right? It's just for that state. And so for like Oregon, it takes a lot to become a resident of the state of Oregon. It's not something that you can just move there and you automatically become a resident when you're taking classes. There are a lot of limitations and a lot of things you have to complete within a year's time to become a resident. So I'll give you some more information specifically about OSU, but definitely contact your institutions and find out more, because it is going to vary state by state. And Riley and Gabriel, anything you want to add on residency for y'all? I'll let you do that.
Yeah, I would just add, I think for most institutions, it's more than just moving and living there for a year. There's some additional steps, some things that need to be kind of proven, some documentation. A lot of our schools have specific team or a specific person who, like, that's all they do is residency, because there are so many different details to it at each different school. So as Heather said, make sure you're talking to your specific school. Of course, you can start with any of us and we'll direct you to those resources or those points of contact and get you the information and details that you need about residency for you.
For the University of Wyoming, again, very similar. I think the University of Wyoming specifically, we are pretty hard to gain in-state residency. I don't know if you all students know this. We are the only four-year institution in the state of Wyoming. So that just kind of adds one more step to gain residency within the state. There are multiple different steps along with what Heather and Gabriel said. So reach out to each institution and we will get you contacted with whoever you need to be contacted by.
Great. So I think we're kind of rounding out here on today's presentation. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the chat right now because we'll close out in just a couple minutes. But a reminder that for the rest of the afternoon, well, not the rest, for 2 hours, the representatives will have individual Zoom rooms that you can drop into to get more information about those institutions. This is a great chance to learn more about what a lot of the colleges across the country can offer you, more than just in the West, but just really all over. So take advantage of that time. Admissions advisors, that's our job, is to answer your questions, right, and be a point of contact for you. So take advantage of this time to ask those questions. And I don't have any more questions in my chat. Gabriel, Riley, anything you want to say before we close out?
I would just say if you happen to join and maybe miss any portions, or you just want to review again, we are giving this presentation again this afternoon at 1:15. So if you happen to miss the beginning or you just need another review, feel free to join us.
All right. With that, we'll let you go and contact us if you have any questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
All right. Well.